10,000 years ago, something sprouted on a slope in Mexico's Oaxacan highlands, and it had no business surviving. The odds were slim. Worse than slim, a seed the size of a fingernail dropped into volcanic soil, with no gardener, no plan. Just wild sun, a wild slope, and wild stubbornness. Now picture this: that same seed would outlast the Roman Empire, Genghis Khan, and your iPhone. This isn't a fairy tale. This is your biography. So, you were born a pumpkin, but people didn't believe in you right away. Archaeologists found your remains in caves in Mexico, dated between 7,000 and 5,500 BCE, which means for the first 3,000 or 4,000 years, people just looked at you, eyed you up, didn't plant you, didn't eat you, didn't grow you, just watched you dig into the dirt year after year and thought, well, let's see where this goes. You just waited, and for good reason. Your flesh back then was so bitter and tough that even the most desperate, starving hunter would take one bite and set you aside. Zero chance of becoming dinner. Your seeds, though, that's a different story. Nutritious, filling, worth the effort. That's why people started collecting you at all. And once the flesh got scooped out and tossed, what was left was a tough, dried shell. And it turned out to make a great container. A water jug, a grain bin. The first disposable container in history that somehow wasn't disposable at all. It lasted for years, so you became useful before you ever became edible. But the smartest move people made with you wasn't what they did to you. It was who they planted you next to. Native American peoples came up with a system called the Three Sisters. You, corn, and beans planted together in the same hole, like one family. Corn shot upward and became a living trellis for the beans to climb. The beans, in turn, pumped nitrogen into the soil, feeding the ground all three of you grew in. And you just spread your wide leaves across the dirt below, blanketing the whole plot in green. No weeds, no water evaporating, no extra watering needed. Three plants that didn't compete. They worked for each other. And you were the one keeping the whole partnership moist, clean, and protected from below. Nobody was even really eating you yet. And you were already a team player. Then a few thousand more years passed, and fate paired you up with completely different people on a completely different continent. The tradition of carving scary faces for Halloween didn't start with you at all. The Irish and Scottish carved their spooky lanterns out of turnips, rutabagas, even beets, hard, small, stubbornly uncooperative vegetables that took a whole evening of knife fighting to hollow out. Then those same Irish, fleeing famine and poverty, crossed the ocean and landed in America. And there, in this new world, they met you for the first time. You were bigger, softer, easier to work with. Practically built for carving out eyes, a nose, and a crooked grin. So you rewrote someone else's tradition in your own image. No effort required, just by being yourself. But long before you became a holiday icon, a much more serious role was waiting for you. The role of lifesaver. For the early European settlers in New England, the first years on this new land weren't an adventure. They were a fight for survival. The familiar European crops they'd brought with them simply refused to take root in foreign soil and foreign weather. Wheat got sick, familiar vegetables died off, and hunger didn't ask permission. That's when you stepped in. You were boiled into soup when there was nothing else to boil, mixed into dough when flour ran short, baked into bread, even brewed into beer because people were willing to turn you into anything if it meant surviving one more season. You weren't a fancy dish. You were the difference between starving and making it through. And only once the worst years had passed, once survival stopped being a daily battle, did you finally get the chance to become something a little more enjoyable than just a lifeline. Your culinary story didn't start on a plate. It started right in the hot embers of a campfire. Colonists sliced off your top like a lid, scooped out the seeds inside, then simply poured in milk, dropped in some honey, a few spices, and set you, whole and intact, right into the heat of the fire. No crust, no baking pan. You were the filling, the dish, and the oven all at once. That's what the first American pumpkin pie looked like. Rough, simple, and that's exactly where your sweet destiny began. The one that would eventually land you on every table at Thanksgiving. But one day your story took an unexpected turn. From kitchen lifesaver, you suddenly became a fairy tale icon. It happened in France, at the end of the 17th century, in the lavish salons of Versailles, where courtiers spun made-up stories to entertain the king and the aristocracy. Among them was Charles Perrault, an official who, late in life, started writing down folk tales that circulated among ordinary people and turning them into literary works, fit for high society. In 1697, he published his Cinderella, and that's where you landed a role nobody could have predicted. Perrault needed an object to transform, something plain, peasant-like, even a little ridiculous, that could become a carriage. And he picked you, not a rose, not an apple, not even a melon. You, specifically, because in the rural towns of that time, you were one of the biggest, most grotesque-looking vegetables anyone could find. The plainer and funnier the starting point, the bigger the wow when the magic kicked in. So an ordinary vegetable from a peasant's field became a symbol of magic, right in front of a king. A few more centuries passed, and you changed again. This time not because of a writer or starving colonists, but because of humanity's obsession with breaking records. Because if people once grew you just to survive, today they grow you just to outdo each other. Meet Matthew. In October 2025, twin brothers Ian and Stuart Patton of the UK unveiled a pumpkin weighing 2,119 pounds, well over a ton, circumference more than 21 feet around. 40 years of stubborn breeding to reach that one moment. And here you are, the same species whose wild ancestors barely survived on a mountainside, now gaining up to 66 pounds in a single day during peak growing season. Farmers can literally hear your skin crackling. You got so big that people started swimming inside you. In the US, Canada, Germany, and Belgium, every fall growers pick out giant pumpkins weighing 600 to 100 pounds, climb in with paddles, and race them. Because you're not just a fruit. You're porous, full of air, and float better than any boat has the right to, carrying a full-grown adult on the water. But size is just one of your new jobs. Now people press oil out of you. Oil valuable enough that cosmetic brands and medicine pay premium prices for it. Your scraps get turned into bioplastic that breaks down in the soil in a matter of weeks, handing you back the exact same role you played thousands of years ago, being useful, right when everyone stopped believing in you. The borders of your empire today aren't limited to one small town anymore. You sprouted in volcanic soil in Mexico, at an altitude where nobody planted you on purpose. Now you survive the cold at nearly 10,000 feet. In the Andes and the Himalayas, where nights are freezing and summers are short. You're grown on 6 out of 7 continents. There's exactly one place where even your stubbornness gives up, the permafrost of Antarctica. 6 out of 7. Not bad for a seed people once just stared at. Your biggest home today isn't even America, the country every Halloween movie associates you with. It's China. Over 9 to 10 million tons a year, nearly a third of the entire world's harvest grows where nobody's carving you into a jack-o'-lantern in a place that almost never shows up in your movies. Meanwhile, the small American town of Morton, Illinois, decided not to compete on volume and just declared itself your world capital instead. No official title, no vote. They just went ahead and named themselves that. And it turns out they'd earned it. That's where 85% of all the world's canned pumpkin gets processed. One region feeds half the planet out of cans, and another quietly grows you by the ton, asking for zero credit. That's your empire. No single capital, but at home everywhere. Botanists, meanwhile, decided the word pumpkin wasn't dignified enough for you. So they gave you your own scientific classification, a peepo. A specific type of berry. Not a vegetable, like everyone assumes. A berry. Just one wearing armor. That same tough shell-like rind is exactly why you're nearly immune to rotting. You can sit on a kitchen counter for weeks, months. No fridge, no preservatives, no attention at all from the person who bought you and then completely forgot about you. While other produce spoils in days, you hold steady for an entire season. And on a cellular level, you're still exactly what you always were. A stubborn survivor from a mountainside in Mexico. You went from a seed nobody dared to eat to a fruit people throw entire eco-festivals over. Every year in Ludwigsburg, Germany, more than 450,000 of your relatives, 600 different varieties, get hauled in and stacked into full-blown sculptures that draw 10,000 visitors. From a wild mountainside in Mexico, to a royal carriage in a French fairy tale, to a world record weighing over a ton. You're not just a vegetable anymore. You're a global empire that started with a single seed. Okay, so let's be honest and recap what you've actually been through. People ignored you for 3,000 years, then ate you just to survive, turned you into a water bucket. Then some Irish guys carved you a face and stuck you on a porch. Then a French dude turned you into a carriage for a girl who couldn't even remember to grab her shoe on the way out. Then you got shoved into campfire ashes with milk and honey because the colonists had nothing else left. And now people are pressing oil out of you at perfume prices and turning your scraps into plastic wrap that dissolves on its own. And on top of all that, you're the heaviest dude in vegetable history, correction berry history. Over a ton, and big enough to float 2 grown men down a river. Seriously, pumpkin. If there were a ranking of nature's most underrated survivor, you'd be #1, beating out even cockroaches. So next time someone jams a knife in you and sticks you on a porch for Halloween, remember, there's 10,000 years of pure effortless flex packed inside you. And if you like this pumpkin story, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode about how the banana took over the world.